Emily Johnson moved quietly between the polished marble columns of the Preston Music Conservatory. At 28, she wore the beige uniform of the custodial staff with quiet dignity. 3 years of working here, and most days she remained as invisible as the dust she removed from antique picture frames. In the main hall, she paused near the magnificent Steinway piano. For just a moment, her expression shifted, a whisper of longing crossing her face. In the reflection of a polished brass lamp, she saw herself as she once was, 15 years younger, seated at a similar piano, her future stretched before her like an unwritten symphony. But that was before life had intervened, before choices made from love rather than ambition had set her on a different path. Victoria Parker strode through the reception area, her heels striking the marble with authoritative clicks. "Those chairs need to be exactly 1 inch apart. Not this haphazard arrangement," she instructed, barely glancing at Emily. From across the room, Samantha Reed, the conservatory's star piano instructor, called out, "Victoria, do remind the staff that they should use the service corridors when the guests arrive." Emily's cheeks warmed, but her hands remained steady. These small humiliations had become as routine as dusting the trophy cases. Later, as Emily polished the brass handrail, she paused at the sound of a student struggling through a difficult passage. Without thinking, Emily whispered, "Try releasing your wrist more on the arpeggios." The girl turned, startled, as Samantha appeared beside her. "Did you just try to instruct my student?" Samantha's voice cut through the air like ice. "Please stick to what you know, cleaning supplies and trash collection." Emily's eyes dropped to the floor as the door closed firmly in her face. The day of the annual fundraising gala arrived. Emily worked quietly when Samantha burst through the doors, phone clutched against her ear. "What do you mean you're in the hospital? The gala starts in an hour." As Samantha ended the call, Victoria rushed toward her. "What's happened?" "Olivia can't perform. She's in the emergency room. But she's our centerpiece." The Jefferson Foundation specifically requested Liszt's Hungarian Rhapsody. Jason Miller, a young teaching assistant, approached hesitantly. "Mrs. Parker, I've heard someone else play that piece quite brilliantly." "I'm suggesting Emily." The silence that followed was deafening. Samantha recovered first, a laugh bursting from her lips. "The janitor? You can't be serious." "I've heard her playing after hours when she thought the building was empty." Jason continued. "She's remarkable." Victoria turned to stare at Emily. "Is this true? You play piano?" "Yes, ma'am." "And you think you could play Liszt's Hungarian Rhapsody?" Emily met Samantha's eyes directly for perhaps the first time in 3 years. "Yes, ma'am. I can." Samantha leaned closer to Victoria and Richard Taylor, the board chairman. "It might actually work to our advantage. If she's terrible, we make a joke about our desperate situation. If she's passable, we look generous." "It's settled then," Victoria announced. "You'll play tonight." "And if I refuse?" Emily's question surprised even herself. Victoria's smile never reached her eyes. "Then we'll need to reassess whether your position here is still necessary." That evening, the grand hall filled with patrons in glittering attire. Emily stood in the wings, still in her beige uniform, the name tag Emily J. pinned to her chest. Victoria tapped the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a slight change. In the spirit of our community outreach initiatives, one of our maintenance staff has volunteered to demonstrate how music touches all lives." Emily walked onto the stage. A few titters of laughter floated from the back of the room. She sat at the piano, hands hovering above the keys. In the darkness behind her eyelids, she found herself sitting beside her grandmother. Music isn't about who you are to the world. It's about who you are when the world falls away. Emily's fingers touched the keys. The first notes of Liszt's Hungarian Rhapsody filled the hall, not hesitant attempts, but confident, masterful tones that commanded attention. The whispers died. The smirks froze. 200 souls fell completely silent. When Emily played the final thunderous chord, the hall remained suspended in silence before erupting. The applause swelled into a standing ovation. "Bravo!" echoed through the hall. David Thompson, a respected conductor, made his way to the stage. "Young lady, where did you study?" "I didn't, sir. Not formally. My grandmother taught me." Margaret Johnson. Recognition dawned in David's eyes. "Margaret Johnson, who played with the National Symphony?" Emily nodded. "She raised me after my parents died. We couldn't afford conservatory tuition. I was accepted to Juilliard 15 years ago, but my grandmother had a stroke that same week. I stayed to care for her. By the time she passed, there were medical bills and the opportunity was gone. 3 months later, Emily walked through the same hallways carrying sheet music instead of cleaning supplies. Her new position with the Jefferson Foundation's Music Within Reach program gave her the chance to work with students from backgrounds like her. The I in the practice room. 8 teenagers waited. My grandmother used to say that music isn't about who you are to the world. Emily told them as she sat at the piano. It's about who you are when the world falls away. She began to play, and as her students watched, Emily finally understood. Sometimes the greatest act of courage is simply being who you are, without apology, in a world that tried to make you invisible.